Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Welcome to The Circle with my lovely co-hosts, Heather Meeks, Tracy Evans, and Lynn Peltzer. You guys have been waiting for this topic. We've been getting a lot of comments around it. So today we're talking about charge what you're worth. And we actually have Tracy who's going to be leading the topic. So you guys ready? Make sure you're interacting.
The tea's hot.
Make sure you're interacting and throw in any questions you might have. We're gonna, lean in and read the screen. All right, Tracy, you're up.
All right. So I am very passionate about this topic. Having started my own business 6 years ago, I faced a lot of these demons. I still face these demons. When you do what you love, it sometimes feels wrong to get paid for it. So that might be something holding you back. But what I want to really talk about today is what's getting in the way and what do you struggle with when you're developing your programs or your products and pricing it. And how are you going to get past that? Because ultimately, if you're running a business, you want to be successful. You want to feel really good about what you're doing. And there's lots of things that can happen if we don't charge what we think we're worth. The biggest one is resentment, and you're not going to do your best work. The reality is.
Right.
So what gets in the way? What do you think are some of the things that get in the way? I've got my list, but would love us all to
Ourselves.
bring that, right? Yeah, we're our own worst enemy, aren't we?
Stories we tell ourselves in our head about not being worthy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Comparison game.
Oh
Yeah.
huge one.
Right?
Yeah.
I'm not worth that much because
Yeah.
I haven't done it as long. Maybe I'm not as good. I don't know if that was as valuable.
Exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, do I have the experience to be able to
To
be
back
the
that
voice?
up?
And, yeah,
Or will
Yeah.
people believe I'm worth that?
Right.
that's right.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
So what do you think the odds are that they'll believe you're worth it if you don't believe you're worth it?
Mhm.
No.
That'd be a big fat
Zero.
Right?
So there's lots of things that I see get in the way. I coach my graduates
Wow,
of our
sorry.
program. Yeah, go
Hi,
ahead.
ladies from Tennessee.
Hey, Colleen.
Hello.
Hello. Thanks for joining.
That's so cool.
I think it's always
That's my
important here
EB.
today.
Morning, EB.
Oh,
Colleen.
we got lots of ladies with us. Samantha and Beth and Linda.
Mo.
And Mode is there. And
And
Michelle
Alina.
Mahara. Nice.
Awesome.
Okay,
So
sorry.
Beth.
No, it's all good. So
Morning.
I know in the work that I do, a big challenge that we have is what will people pay for it? Because there's not a huge base of people doing equine assisted learning. So we deal with these questions a lot of times, but it doesn't get any different, I think, across your industry. So
Mhm.
one of the biggest things I think happens is a lack of knowledge. Like what's normal? What are your competitors charging?
Mhm.
What will the market bear? The bottom line is you can think you're worth $1 million, but if the market doesn't believe that, then you're going to have a problem. Like there is a balance between charging your worth and charging what the market
Yeah.
will bear.
Absolutely.
So there is that dance we have to play. But I find the biggest thing that people get stuck on are stories. The most
Right.
compelling thing that people
Mhm.
say to me when they say, oh, I can't charge that much, it's because they think their clients can't afford it. And they have this whole story about, I need to lower it down. She's one of my best friends. I can't charge her full price. If I'm your best friend, I should be prepared to pay more and support your business. If your friends don't
I need
want
to
support
remember
your
that
business, right? Like, there are people out there who may need a hand up and may need help. And when you're doing work like I do, I certainly have groups that I do discounts for because I know the impact and I know the funding isn't there. And I get other success out of those things because they're so fulfilling for me. But there's got to be a balance because you don't have a business if you can't sustain your operations, and that takes financing. So you got to get rid of that self-doubt and the worthiness piece of it. But the stories, you've got to kill the stories. I did a coaching program once, and they made it very clear there is what happens and there are stories, and we go on and on in our heads about all the emotion around the what happened stuff. Ultimately, we don't know what other people can afford.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We have no idea.
True.
Other people's financial situation, none of our business.
Yeah, you're right.
So how do we then go about pricing and going in with confidence? Do you have some other stories you guys want to share, or do you want me to get into how are we going to get over this? Some of the thoughts I had.
Well, I think the self-doubt part, is huge. That's probably the biggest hurdle I think that people have around that.
Yeah.
And how do you get over that? Well, look at what you're giving, right? Like seriously, look at what you're giving. And if you
Right.
are over promising and under delivering, then that's a problem. But if you are
Right.
giving what you should be giving and giving it well, then you gotta be able to shelf that self-doubt.
Yeah.
and say, if so-and-so is able to do that, my competitor, and I'm giving as much or more, then this is just my problem.
Yes.
Just like swallow that big lump in your
Yeah.
throat and put it out there.
I think too, is really knowing your target market.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a big
because
one.
in my industry, there are social media people out there that charge $2,000, $2,500 a month. Not even close to me. I'm like way down there. But the reality is I know exactly who my target market is.
Mhm.
So if I'm going to go work for corporate, then yes, I'm charging you $2,000, $2,500 a month because expectations are very different.
Yep.
But my market being entrepreneurs and small business owners, I price myself to give them the best I can give them at a price that they can afford, and I still make money,
Mhm.
right? So knowing your target market is huge because it will ultimately determine how far you can go or how high you can go and what you charge.
I mean, for you as well, you have a lot of people that are just starting to get
Yeah.
used to Facebook as well.
Yeah.
So the package that you offer them may be a little bit more basic and look a lot different than somebody who is well versed in
Exactly.
social media and maybe looking to kind of take it that, much
To the next
further.
level.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
Not everyone is your client, exactly.
No,
I know
that's
with
right.
Fair City, we have a couple of different membership levels, right? So
Mhm.
some people, this is where they're at, and
Yeah.
others, if there's a higher membership level that they can have a bunch of more things, but maybe they won't use that.
Yeah.
So that's okay too, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
This is what it is, and it's going to fit for whoever it
Yeah.
fits for.
Yeah, and being okay with that. Like I know for myself, so in my profession, many of the prices are preset.
Right.
But depending on the product, a lot of people get sticker shock. You're sending them a product, you think that it's wonderful and it's $200 for a month's worth.
Yeah.
I used to struggle with that. I used to struggle with sending the message and being like, I don't know if I should send because I don't know if they can afford it, but who am I to decide what somebody else wants or can afford, right? And I think we touched on that already. But fear does come into play because I have found myself in the past almost apologizing for the price.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which we can't do.
Like I know this is really high, but it does really work and it will provide you the
You're
results you're
justifying
looking
it.
for. Never justify it
Yeah.
because then that
It degrades the value.
absolutely.
Yeah.
The grocery store wasn't apologizing to me last week. And I certainly noticed some things went up, and I didn't think the value went up.
Right.
Right? But
Well, and I
we
think-
want it, we need it, so we buy it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I think we can't lose sight of perceived value. And I say
Right.
this to every
Right.
graduate that walks out of my door. I'm like, you do not want to be the cheapest one in the market
Mhm.
because that sends a message,
True.
right? And I
Yeah.
certainly am not in an industry that can afford to be the cheapest thing in the market.
Right.
Like if you want to have personal development and leadership development, you're going to have to, and you want to do it through horses, you can come to us for a certain price, or you can get your own horse and see if you can do it cheaper.
I like that.
They eat a lot.
They eat a lot and they do dumb stuff. So I think there's a few things that you can really look at to get past it. And the first one, as we talked about, is do your research. If you don't
Huge.
know your business and you don't know your target market, where do you start, right? So really know your business. I always teach my graduates to do a SWOT analysis. So
Mhm.
strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats,
Yep.
and a competitive analysis. And we also do a value proposition in our marketing workshops. We do a
Oh.
value proposition exercise so that you can get really comfortable with, hey, this is what I deliver. This is who I am.
Mhm.
And it does a couple things. It helps you, gives you that knowledge to price something reasonably, but it also helps to boost your confidence. And you have a real knowledge and a real understanding and a real belief in what you're delivering. The second part of that is like, take a lot of time to focus on our strengths.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all so humble and we're also afraid to toot our own horn and what am I good
Right.
at? If you don't know what you're really good at, you're not going to convince anybody else you're good at it either.
Right.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
really believe what you deliver, I think is a big part of it.
It's
and,
huge.
and there's personal development we all have to do for that. I had a really hard time taking money for what I do now after I left my organization and corporate because I knew I deserved to be paid for what I did in corporate.
Right. Right.
Right? There were
Right.
huge sacrifices to my psyche and what I had to do to be there. Not that I did bad work, but it just wasn't fulfilling. Whereas when you do something so fulfilling, you're like, well, what more should I be able to ask for? Really?
Right.
Like I get to do what I love.
Mhm.
But we have to get out of our own heads that way, right?
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah.
Get out of our heads. My God.
And the stories.
What's
So-
that mean?
Right?
Like,
Testimonials.
honest to
The
God.
next
Yes.
time you think, oh, I'm not sure if I should,
Yeah.
save the testimonials. If somebody sent you an email or a
Right.
card, and on that day when you're doubting yourself, look at that stuff. Reach out to somebody who you've done a great job with,
Right.
Yeah.
and let them tell you, like, oh yes, it's worth every penny, because you can kind of sink back into that again, and you need that reminder every once in a while until you get to a point where you're like, no, I know this, right? And that happens.
I do a
After a while.
survey after every single program. So
Yeah.
if it's a date night or a corporate leadership or corporate team building, I have everybody fill out a survey. And in those first few years, every time I got the surveys back, and they were always 5-star,
Yeah.
great reports and everything, I would have that moment of, I may have something here. But it
Right.
took a long time to
Mhm.
build that confidence to say, wow, I really am delivering some significant value.
It's validating.
It is.
No,
and we
it's
need that.
huge.
Yeah.
And don't be so silly to think that people are just giving you a 5-star
Exactly.
for no reason.
No, they're not.
No,
People will complain if they are
Yeah.
not happy.
Mhm.
They will say nothing
Yeah, no.
or complain. So that's the other story that goes on in people's heads too. It's
This-
like, oh, well, they're just saying it was
No.
great. Maybe they don't. What?
People
Yeah.
do.
Why do we
People
do
do.
that?
Yeah,
that.
let's
ourselves.
tear ourselves
People
down.
will not put their name next to something
No.
if they don't believe in it, especially when it comes
Yeah.
to reviews. So if someone
Yeah,
is
no,
giving
I
you that
agree.
type of a review, bask in it,
Yeah.
because they would not have done it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And the stories. How many of you have said, "Oh, they can't afford it"?
For me,
Yeah.
like I,
Yeah, no,
like,
I can't
yeah.
ask them to pay this. There's no way they're going to want to pay this.
Yep.
That's in our head. And I'll give you 2 examples. First one is, who can afford a $7 coffee? Probably everybody in this room once
Yeah.
or twice
Oh.
a week, right? But if you said that, imagine sitting around the Starbucks table, 20 years ago or whatever it
Right.
was, and somebody goes, "We're going to charge $7 for coffee."
Yeah.
You don't think somebody in there went, "No one's going to pay $7 for coffee."
Right.
They're everywhere. They're on every corner, and they're making millions. So people will spend money on what they want.
Mhm.
Secondly, I want you to go onto the Tiffany's site, and they have, I believe it is a sterling silver coffee can or something of that nature for $2,000. So, or just go on the Tiffany's site, because people are buying that stuff.
Yeah,
And
right.
it's ridiculous. Right? Oh yeah, no, I like my Tiffany's too,
Don't let her out.
but you find the money for it because you
Yes.
like it, right? And you want it.
Mhm.
So, when we sit there and say, "Oh, nobody can afford it," look at some of the ridiculous things that people will put money towards.
Yep.
And if you know
That's
your
so
value and you know your story,
That is so true.
why would they pay you for the great work you do and the great products that you sell?
Mhm.
And lastly, don't apologize. And you talked about this as well.
Yeah.
Not everyone is your client, as you said. Don't apologize for it. I really struggled. I would pre-negotiate when I was working with corporate teams. I would have my pricing. I'd be like, okay, I'm going in. And then I'll be like, but if you bring me this many people, I'll give you 10% off and I'll do this,
Mhm.
and I would start to sweeten
Yeah.
the deal before we'd even had a conversation. And I think of it on the reverse side, if somebody started to do that to me, I would be like, this isn't as good as it looks, probably, if she's trying to,
Like there's a
discount.
desperation.
I was just gonna say
Yes.
that it does
For the
create
sale.
yeah,
that,
absolutely.
you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah,
thought
no.
of
So
somebody
you've got to
being
go in
desperate,
with confidence, right? And don't apologize for it. If they can't afford it right now, then they can't afford it right now. Or if it's not the value that they're looking for right now, they're not your client, and that's okay.
Mhm.
I really struggled with doing mine when I first started out with the Facebook business. Struggled badly, and I knew my prices were dirt cheap.
Yeah.
There was no question.
Yep.
And I had ridiculous amounts of clients, which was wonderful, except I was barely getting by,
Right.
right? Because I was giving such a low ball dollar value, but never mind barely surviving, I was also attracting a client base that was very different than
right.
where ultimately I
Yes.
needed to be, right? So certain individuals would see my price and think I wasn't worth it, because why would I hire someone who only is going to charge me $50 a month?
Right.
Obviously, she doesn't know what she's doing,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, receive
So when
money.
I went
Yep.
through my journey, and I literally tripled my prices,
Yeah. You
is
might
what
have
I
a few
did.
People kicking you in the butt along the way.
Yes, I
Yeah,
did.
yeah, few people.
Few people telling me about my prices. But ultimately, I tripled the prices, which was a shock to my existing client base at that time. But I went in prepared.
Yeah.
And I knew I was going to
Mhm.
lose 98% of my clients, and I was prepared for that because it was time for me to truly value what I had to offer. Now, I'm not 100% there, right? I still question some of, because I know I should be higher, but you know what? I'm just really comfortable with my prices. So I'm okay with staying where I'm at for that, because that's just how I value myself, I
Yeah.
guess,
Mhm.
right?
Well, and if you think about how hard you had to work for that $50 and how many people you had to service at that, you couldn't
Yeah,
possibly
right.
give them the value
No.
beyond $50
That's
at that
right.
rate, right? So
Mhm.
now you're in a place where you can actually deliver real solid value to
Right.
your clients, have much more retention in your client base, and a lot more
Well,
success from what you
exactly,
deliver.
right?
Yeah.
So, and I think everybody has to go through the exercise of themselves, looking at themselves, look at the reviews that you've received, look at the material you're putting out there, the message that you're sending out there, and truly understand if you are the Facebook queen, and right, and relook at your prices and put
Yeah.
yourself at the level that you should be at.
Absolutely.
Questions?
Yeah, I wonder if we have any
Look at that, we're all
questions.
leaning in. So, okay, so when you talk about, earlier you talked about strengths and weaknesses, so you guys do that analysis. Sometimes we get so caught up in our weaknesses,
Oh, absolutely.
right,
Yeah.
that we don't see our strengths.
Mhm.
And if we get caught up in that, then our value, who we actually, when we're looking in the mirror, we see nothing.
Yeah.
So how do people get past that element of it? How do they really, should they reach out to individuals, whether it's family, friends, or clients, and
100%.
say,
Yeah. Have
what
a
are my
mentor.
top 3 strengths that you
Yep.
see
Yeah.
in me and what it is I offer you?
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe that will help bring people to a new level of recognizing their value.
And find a mentor. Don't go through this all on your own. Find
Yeah.
people you can look up
No,
to.
it's hard
and
to go
get-
through it on
bounce
your
things
own.
off people and
Mhm.
find someone you can really trust that's going to help you move through those thoughts.
Yeah.
I always approach things very logically. So I will get stuck in my weaknesses, but then I will look at it and say, so how do I fix that?
Right.
So you can't sit there and go, oh, I suck at this, and I'm just going to sit here and suck at it forever. Like if
Mhm.
I suck at this, I need to find support, I need to find education, I need to find a way to get past it, or I need to say, if I'm no good at that, I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm going to do something else. So this isn't working, as you said earlier. Well, then mine, you never did. Too many things going on today. Then you have to figure out when to move on and do something different.
It's not a logical issue. It's an emotional issue.
It is an
Oh,
emotional
for
shift,
Yeah,
right?
for sure. And that's maybe
So-
that's who you need to talk to sometimes. Is
Yeah.
the logical
You have to
people
think
in
your
your
way out
life.
of it.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. You got to think your way out of it.
So in your growth
That's the stories too.
of understanding your value, is there a set number of how many times you will go through like an increase in price based on as you grow and you have more value to offer? Or like at what point do you end up believing you are at the ultimate value of
Are
what
you
you're
asking
offering?
us about yourself?
No, because I do know I need to charge more. I do know that. But I'm just curious.
I don't think it ever stops.
No,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it
So-
looks different for everybody.
Yeah, and every phase of your business. So in my beginning, when I first started my business, nobody knew what I did. So I had to have enticing
Oh,
offers, and I had,
right.
like yourself, right? Nobody knew what you were going to do for
Mhm.
Facebook. So you have this entry price, and then you build your confidence, and then you realize what you're providing is so valuable. I can increase my price and attract a different clientele. And then you get so busy where you're like, well, I can't continue to manage this level. And obviously there's demand, and I can
Yeah.
only supply so much. So you can find, or you decide you want to structure your life differently.
Mhm.
So you start to look at those high value clients that are going to bring you big programs in less time, so that you can actually structure your life around that. Like for me, it's been a thought process every year. Like, how do I want my my business mix to change?
Right.
And pricing does
Okay.
affect that.
Yeah. Because I
Yeah.
did increase my
Yeah.
prices this year.
Yeah.
But it's for new clients moving forward,
Right,
right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
my existing clients are not going to get affected. But moving forward, I did. I said, you know what? Yes, I am ready to add another $50 a month onto
Yeah.
my package, right? So
And maybe, I mean, for some, they have different packages.
And that's where
There
I'm
is
at
the
now.
entry level
Yes.
package. There's the middle of the road, and then there is for that, in your case, those corporate clients.
Yeah, because I do have like a basic package, which is the majority of the clients take. But then as I'm talking to potential new clients and they're like, well, can you do this and this and this? Now I'm customizing. So I take my base and I add on to it for them. So now not everybody is paying the same price because they're not getting the same services.
And I missed something really obvious, which I should have probably started with, is know your costs.
Right.
And this is a big deal. And so many businesses go out of business because they price based on what they think and hear. They haven't done their research, but they also aren't controlling their costs. So, I encourage my graduates to do a real breakdown on what does it cost to keep a horse every day and run your farm and your time. We won't charge for our own time, and that's not wise. So you have to know what your base, like what are your costs, and then understand what do you need to make on top of that in order to sustain your life and build a lifestyle that you can live with. But if you don't have those base costs, that's where you start to undercut yourself and you're out of business. If your cash flow goes sideways, you're out of business. So step one is, what does it cost you to run this business?
And
what
how
does
do
it
you
cost
grow?
to deliver that? Exactly.
How do you grow your business if you don't have any money to put into it? And
Exactly.
how do you go from, thinking, okay, well, I'm going to start off charging really low and have low expectations because I'm just new. And then you have this huge way to go. Like Tammy's saying, how many times do you increase it? You're making it harder for yourself and making it harder for other people in your industry. So my best friend's a photographer, and I remember when she was doing portraits, and you'd see people that are doing it for like almost nothing. And then the people that are charging more are like, I don't know how you're doing that. And you're doing it all for free, basically. And it's bad for everybody in the industry too.
Yes.
Absolutely.
So
you're not only doing yourself a disservice.
So you do still have to look
others.
at your competitors. I mean,
Yeah.
in most cases, I know my main ones, and I know what they charge, and I have to be comfortable with that's where they're at, and I'm here. So ultimately, what is going to work best for me and my clientele, because I might have a completely different clientele than, I can't even think of the name of his company right now, but Jim and Barbara Lau in Barrie, they have a different client base than I do, so their prices are going to be different than what I offer. So it's okay to look at your competitors, just don't get caught up in them, right? So, and develop a relationship with them. So I send referrals to, the different social media people that I have connections with, because sometimes I'm just not the right fit. And I know that, they need to go elsewhere if they need whatever it might be. So
I think when it comes down to it, ultimately the measure will be your business is thriving. You're charging the right thing. You're not,
you feel
crazy squirrel everywhere.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So there you go.
Great topic.
Don't get lost in the stories. Do your research, know your value, and go in with confidence, because if you believe in yourself and what you're delivering, so will your customers. And we'd love to hear from you. So tell us some of your challenges. What have been some of your pricing wins and not so winnies?
Awesome.
And let's keep the conversation going. Like us, share us, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel in case you miss us live. We'll see you soon.
Great.
Bye, guys.
Have a great day, everybody.